Hey, I'm Ange.
And I'm Beck.
And we are the Gold Diggers, because we believe there's gold found in everyone.
Everyone is unique, interesting and exciting with a great story to share.
And we aim to find it.
The question is, can we rise to the challenge and strike gold? Stay tuned to find out as we chat to today's mystery guest.
Honey, you're my sugar.
So this is how it works. One of us knows who the mystery guest is and the other one doesn't. And today it's Ange's turn to find the gold in our mystery guest, Claire Roberts. Thanks for joining the show today, Claire.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. And I've just discovered you've come from the Gold Coast.
I have. So about 2.5 hours.
Yeah. So thanks for coming all that way.
That's all right. I had a coffee, Krispy Kreme. It was all good.
Oh, well, it's worth it. Krispy Kreme. Absolutely.
Exactly.
It's a nice day out, really,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah,
One
yeah.
coast to the other.
Yeah, it's all good. So,
yes. So, Ange, I'm just going to give you a couple of points. So, Claire has just celebrated her 14th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Lives on the Gold Coast, as we've already established, and is a business owner.
Ooh,
That's
beautiful.
your little extra bit there.
Thank you. You've
Okay,
been kind.
you may leave. Out you go. Now that Ange is out of the room,
Yep.
we're just going to tell our audience a little bit about you.
Yeah.
So I think we've been following each other on Instagram for a
Yeah.
couple of years now, and you've written a book.
I have.
And what's that book called?
It's called Standing Well.
That's
And it took probably about 2.5 years to put together.
Yes.
So, and a lifetime to write, really.
Yeah. So just a little bit about your background. You've suffered through very close relations, having committed suicide. So
Yep.
your mother and your two aunties.
Yeah.
And you've decided that that's not going to become you.
Yeah.
And you've risen above it.
Yeah.
And you're victorious over that.
Yeah.
And that's what your book is about.
Yeah, it just kind of shares that, and also we went through 10 years of infertility.
Yes.
So I kind of did that ourselves, and just that, life is hard sometimes, but it doesn't mean it's all ugly and worth not pursuing and trying to find the gold and the
That's
light at the
right.
end of the tunnel. So
Yeah, I love that you've risen
yeah.
above it and just become victorious. And
Yeah.
I love your latest post that you've written on Instagram. I'm just
there you
going to
go.
read it out. It's beautiful. Okay, so Claire says, the key I found to living with a victorious mindset is to stop wrestling with God in order to have full control and understanding, to put my what if questions to the grave and just trust him.
yeah,
And I think that pretty much sums up
yeah.
where you are, doesn't it?
Yeah, you don't have the answers. And I was even praying this morning in the car down, and I just said, God, I don't understand any of it, and it seems like I've got an unfair portion amount to kind of wrestle with in life, and I don't know why you thought that was okay, but I've got to a point where it just doesn't matter, because without those stories and those moments, I wouldn't have now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the real breakthrough release moment for me wasn't when a prayer was answered or any of that sort of stuff, but when you just let go and went, I don't know. I don't know why. I may never know why.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that God's not good or my life isn't still worth treasuring, valuing and protecting.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And one of your mottos is just live today. Don't worry about what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Just make the most of today. And that's gold right there, isn't it, Claire?
Yeah, because if you put the weight on what failed or what didn't work or what was whatever the day before, it like today just seems too hard, and it feels like you can't live today because yesterday was too heavy. And then if you focus on tomorrow and the enormity of that, you'll never think you have enough strength, enough ability, enough whatever. So it's like just get through whatever you need to for today.
Yes.
And let tomorrow be tomorrow, and let yesterday, it's gone. You can't change it. It's done.
Yeah, that's
Like
right.
it only has power on you if you let it have the power.
Do you think that's something recently you've learnt or something you've just learnt over the years?
I think just watching, especially with my mum really intimately. I didn't live with my aunties, obviously, but lived with my mum. So watched how the mental health really eroded her days. And so when she used to be like, would think about tomorrow or would think about the mistakes she made the day before, the value of today just diminished.
Yeah.
And so then she would just go back to bed. She would, take another prescription med. She would do whatever. And then just go, it's all too hard. I'm just going to try and wake up when it's all gone, but it will never all be gone. And so I really watched that pattern in life not produce anything good. And she was an incredible mother, and she really tried her best, but she just, you know, she had some broken wings and it just never worked out. So I'm not angry at her. I watched it intimately, so it's fine. But, yeah, I just watched the value being too much weight being put on yesterday and tomorrow and today just dissolving before it even had a chance to be something.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think you're remarkable because you could have let that affect you. You could have become like that, but you've broken the mold, haven't you?
Yeah.
And so I think you're amazing. Let's get Angela back in.
Honey, you're my sugar.
She's back. Yeah. Time for some digging, Ange.
Okay, so in that time, I've thought of a good first question.
Yes, what is the question?
If Hollywood came to you and said, we'd like to turn your life into a movie, what would be the title of the movie?
That is a good question.
And who would play you?
Yeah, I know. That's always hard. I think probably the name of my book would still be the name of the movie because it means so much.
So you've written a book?
Words. Yeah, I've written a book.
And the title?
And the title's called Standing Well. So I think that would still be, because it's something that's ever evolving. It's a choice to stand well in whatever season or moment or whatever life throws at you. So it can be for I stood well back then, or I choose to stand well now, or I will continue to stand well. So I think I'd still keep that title, and especially because how it came about with a friend, and I can share that later if you like. And who would play me? I really like Rachel McAdams.
Okay.
I just think she can
She's such a good all-rounder, isn't she?
I think she hits the heart moments, but she can have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I'd hope I look maybe as pretty as she does someday. So,
so any Hollywood producers that are listening right now?
All right, I just don't want to perform. I'm not a performer. So, yeah.
Okay, so stand well.
Yeah.
So when in your life have you felt that's been appropriate or relevant for you?
Yeah, it's a bit of a loaded question because it's really from everything. So from my childhood when I lost my mum and lost my aunties and all those sorts of things, to our infertility struggle, to my anorexia struggle, to really the first 40 years of my life, I've really had to make a choice to stand. And it went through a series of different titles, the book. And then my girlfriend said to me, there's one, I think it was Still Standing was the original one. And she said, but you can still stand and you can be bitter and resentful and you can be vengeful and there's no peace about it. But when you stand well, it's, and she gave me the analogy of it's kind of like there's a rock in the ocean or there's a seaweed, and the still standing is the rock, and you can it can cause people pain because they hit it, or it can do all those things, whereas the seaweed just keeps moving and evolving with the seasons and the things that come in life, but it's still anchored in something true and it's still soft and beautiful. And so that's where standing well really came into effect. And so through all of those sort of seasons, and they're quite big to unpack, but through losing all those important people and then going through my own very personal journeys, that's where I've really learnt to stand well. And sometimes I have not stood well. I have really not. And then you get back up and you go, okay, well, let's not do it that way. That didn't work out so well. So let's try again.
You don't learn how to stand unless you've fallen.
Yeah, and I've definitely fallen a few times. So
yeah. So you mentioned a few things there, then obviously they sound like they're big things. What is probably one of the biggest things you've had to overcome in your life? Probably my mum's suicide and living with her through all her mental illness. So when my mum and dad divorced, I stayed with mum and really looked after her because she had prescription med problem, and that's not to be horrible, and there's a place for that. But in the 90s, it was just write another script, and she didn't have helpful doctors, and there's a whole, I write about it in the book, so there's nothing off limits in my book. I put journal entries and all of that in there, but living that was retrospectively quite hard. At the time I just thought it was normal, that's just what happened. And you were growing up in the home when this was happening?
Yeah, it was just me and mum, that was it. Like my dad was around and he did his best as well, and he followed us down from Brisbane to the Gold Coast, and but I only saw him every second weekend, so there's only so much Yeah. You can do.
So you're an only child?
Yeah.
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 And she was parenting you alone?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was aware of what she was going through?
Not as much. I hid it really well
Yeah.
because I knew that if everyone knew what was happening, they'd take me off her and then she'd have no ability to survive because I was really her lifeblood. And she would often say, like, you know, I live for you and all those things. And once the marriage fell apart for her, I was really the only thing that kept her trying in life.
Because you were only 6 when the marriage fell apart,
Yeah,
weren't you?
yeah.
So this is quite young.
Yeah, but it was kind of good because it happened, like, I didn't know any different. So I'm kind of fortunate. But, yeah, that same period, they broke up and then my auntie, so her sister, committed suicide. So my mum had a double whammy in that moment. And she just never...
Happened at the same time?
Around about, yeah.
Wow.
I feel like my recollection is it happened within the same couple of weeks, but it could be, the timing might be off in that. And then she'd had postnatal depression from me that never was really cured. It was just back in the 80s.
So those two events triggered her, or was she already...
Mental illness is all through my mum's side, so it's all there. I think there would have just been moments for each of these women that were enough. So the postnatal depression after having me definitely kind of tilted it, and then losing a sister, and then, you know, your marriage falling apart. It was like bang, bang,
So
snap.
for you, as an only child, and, you know, solo parenting someone with quite a severe mental health condition, there's a dependency that forms. How did you handle that? And did you recognise that as you were growing?
Yeah, I was very aware of mum's weight on me. But I didn't resent it, kind of thing. I just was like, I'd get disappointed, but I didn't resent it because I don't know, there was just something in me. I was like, okay, this is just what I have to do, you know.
Wow.
I just did it. And I'm so thankful that I got into church when I was 9, I think it was. My RE teachers were amazing. And so then I just went home to mum. I'm like, let's go to this church. This is really cool. And she had done church previous because my nana was, they're all English, and so English Baptists. And so that wasn't unusual for her, but I hadn't known church until that point. So we went back, and then that was a real anchor for me. So at least when mum wasn't great, or there was times that weren't, I knew I looked forward to Sunday and Friday nights with youth. And most people knew most of what was happening. Like, it, you know, you can't hide that level of mental illness and depression. Like, when you're dark, you're dark. And a few families really took us under our wings, and I'd go over to a family's house. Mark and Jemima Hancock to this day still go to my church, and Monday nights we'd have, you know, chocolate Bavarian and spaghetti bolognese and you know, all those kind of things, or I'd watch the football. And so
normal life was happening.
So I could be, I had family moments, and people kind of always welcomed me in. I think I never felt that I was different, but I watched people look at mum with a not pity, but just this, I don't know, they just looked at her different. And I just was like, and I know she felt it, and I was like, that's what always broke my heart for her, because she was doing her best, and sometimes she didn't, but that's, I think, part of the whole
Were you
journey
able
of it.
to talk to people about what you were going through at the time?
I didn't really, because at the time I was just like, well, this is just what I have to do. I don't know, God's always kind of, it's the only way I can put it, is that he's just put this resilience in me, and I've just gone, okay, well, I got to do what I got to do. And then it's afterwards I process it and I go, that probably wasn't okay. Like, I learnt that you couldn't put a knife in a toaster when it's turned on by doing it. It's really not a great thing. But you know, I soon found out you shouldn't do it, but I had no other. So I would do the food shop. I would forge mum's signature on my excursion list, or I'd just kind of say, Mum, just put your hand there, and she'd scribble over it because she'd still be asleep when I left for school. Or
so you raised yourself in lots of ways. And how old were you when she passed?
I was 25.
Okay.
So
was there a point where you're going from adolescence into adulthood where you suddenly had to take a step back and say, okay, I've got to live my life now? What did that look like? I started when I was 16. That's probably when the anorexia kind of kicked in, because I was like, I'm just sick of being in control of like, I just kind of, but then the irony is that I was so in control because I was limiting what I was eating, and I kind of just wanted to do something for me, and I wanted someone to care for me, and I wanted someone to come in and rescue me. And it was really aimed at my dad at that point. Not that he'd done anything, but for me, just, I think it was that delayed
You're
daughter
wanting a
wants her
parent.
father.
Yeah.
So
You're only seeing him once a fortnight.
yeah, and he was doing what he could, and he had his own stuff. And now that I'm older, I understand some of the other stuff because Mum would lie and not tell the truth because their divorce, unfortunately, was not a good one. So I didn't know it. I only heard her side of it for so long. So it is what it is. And so that anorexia was really there. And I remember I wanted to get to 42 kilos. Yeah, 42 kilos. And I got to 42.5. And my heart was like, it will stop at any point, Claire. And I was like, okay. And I would just cry. I would just be like, Lord, I don't want to stop. I don't want it to stop tonight because I got a sports carnival tomorrow. I had no energy to do the sports carnival, but in my head I was like, or I'm going to dinner with tomorrow night with Dad. So just not tonight. And then we'd do it. But he never let me get to 42.5. He never let me get to 42. I got to 42.5.
Because you're quite tall as well, aren't you?
So, So now I'm like 60. I have no problem telling people that. But I'm a lot more muscular. I'm a lot healthier. So, I am always going to be thin. But I was really unwell. And I remember I was going in to say goodbye to Mum. And the curtains were drawn and all the rest of it. And I was like, God, if I am not as fat as you think, as everyone tells me, just show me. And it was literally a light bulb moment. It was like a flash of lightning and I saw this broken, skinny girl and I was like, that's what I look like? He's like, that's what you look like. And I started to kind of eat from that point and it was like just this miraculous turnaround. And then Mum left for the US when I was 19, I think it was. Yeah, she'd done the internet dating, which was still quite young, like in those days then, and was supposed to go for 3 weeks and then rang and said, I'm not coming back. You'll have to figure it out. And I'm like, oh, okay. But it was kind of a blessing because then I could just start to live my life without the weight of someone else. I mean, she was quite good at that point. So grade 11 and 12 were probably her best years for us. She'd kind of find her own thing and she was great. And she was a teacher, so she loved trying to get involved in my schooling.
So was she functioning? Because it was prescription medication,
yeah,
did you
so
say?
Valium, Masindol. They were the main culprits of it. I'm sure there were a couple of other things in there that added to the cocktail.
I actually recently watched one of the Netflix series called Painkillers and just how easy it is to so innocently get hooked on prescription medication. I think medical industry is a lot more aware now of the effects, but back then, you as you say, the prescriptions were given out so freely.
The only time that she couldn't get what she wanted, and she wasn't an addict, like it makes it sound like she was such an addict, but she was just kind of like dependent on it. She would say, Claire, go to the chemist and fulfill the thing, and so I'd walk, because where I live, I still kind of live all in the same area, so I'd walk in the chemist to be like, Claire, we can't, like, she's done her maximum for this week or this month. And then they'd call my dad and be like, Claire's here trying to fill one of Jenny's scripts again. And he's like, okay, I'm sorry. And that's when he'd kind of know. And no one was mad at me or whatever, but they were just like, Jenny, you're at your... but then you do become so dependent on it. When a little bit of adversity comes or a little bit of pain, it's enormous. And you're like, I need something to numb it. Because that's essentially all... They're trying to, like, because my most recent auntie that committed suicide, so there's 3 for my nana. She's lost all 3 daughters to suicide, which that I just am like.
Wow. Is she still alive?
I still see her and I hang out with her, and she's an incredible
Has she got other children?
Got one uncle, so a son. Yeah.
And so have you been able to kind of look deeper into what were the triggers for them? Is it? Yeah,
a little bit. Mental illness, even from my nana's parents, they had it on their side. So it's definitely a genetic thing that goes through. My nana's been on antidepressants probably like 60 years, but on a really minimal, small, well-managed dose. She's a Premier nurse, an incredible, accomplished nurse in her field. So she's the opposite. She will never misuse. She knows the exact amount. She's an incredible woman, brought her kids out on a boat from the UK. And so she's just incredible. And so, for her, mental illness is definitely there. My first auntie, she couldn't have children, and then her marriage fell apart because he cheated on her and then got the other woman pregnant, and it all unravelled. And then, my mum, I think just life, it just, we had a conversation probably a week beforehand, and she was like, I'm just done, Claire. I'm like, I'm just watching someone else's life. I can have an out-of-body experience. And she'd done rehab and it all went bad. And then my most recent auntie, she probably struggled the longest for it because she tried multiple, like when I say multiple, like 20 attempts. But her husband or her sons or my nana, someone would interrupt at the right time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, and so probably her journey is probably a little bit harder, and she's the most recent. But again, I think she just got to a point she was just tired.
When you say recent, how long
like
ago?
2 years ago.
Yeah, right. So how's your nana coped with all that?
She's an extraordinary. She just wakes up every day, and like she's pretty housebound now because as you get older, things don't work. So she's 90 in October.
Yeah, wow.
So she doesn't kind of move around a lot, but she gets up, she listens to her classical music, she reads a Bible, she reads one of the 40 books she's hired from the library, she pats a cat, like she just kind of potters around. And, for her faith has been instrumental. It has. Yeah, it's always been. And she talks about God or Jesus and this woman's had some hard times, obviously, and yet she will just weep with gratefulness that he's been there and that his love sustains her, and that if she goes to the shops and she can't push her trolley back, someone comes, and she just knows that's like God helping her, and she's like, he just sees me in every moment. So
to have that perspective in the trauma that she would have suffered is so remarkable.
It really is. Like,
to
she's
be
never
able to
once
lift your eyes above
like I've probably been more bitter and angry, and I'll tell her, I'll be like, I've wrestled with him and I've got cranky. She's like, no, I've just accepted what my portion is and been thankful for the good things that have come. I'm like, I have not been that person at times.
So is that a key that you see? Because, obviously for you looking forward into your life and having that history, that's a lot for one person to manage. And then by the sounds of it, you've had the eating disorder, and was that fertility issues too?
10 years we tried and nothing. Like, I couldn't even get pregnant.
Right, yeah.
So it was just like, I can't even do what I'm like a woman's supposed to do. So that's when I really miss Mum the most, because I never had her to be like, Mum, can we go have a piece of cake and a coffee, or can we do this? And I had friends and family, but there's no one like your mum, to do it. So that's when I probably really missed her, and I'm like, I wonder what she would have been like. And because, I only got to know her for the first 25 years of my life, and now I'm like, I wonder what she would be like as a 70-year-old, or what this would have been like, or that would have been like, or so there's those questions. I'm like, I feel like I never really got to know her.
Right. I mean, all the stuff that you've been through would be quite a strain on a relationship. How has your husband managed throughout the marriage with all these things going on in your life?
He's been because he'd never had anything to do with mental illness prior, so kind of had that mentality of, well, just be happy, like just go for a walk, or just stop doing what you're doing. And I'm like, in theory, 100% makes sense. But in reality, when like there's bad days and then there's depression, and that they're a completely different kettle of fish. So he really struggled probably in those first kind of 5 years to understand, and was like Mum would ring me at 2:00 in the morning, because of time zones as well. She wasn't great with America. She'd lived there for the last 10 years of her life. But he was like, what do you mean she's sad, or she's this, or, so he kind of really struggled to understand that. And then my last auntie who passed, she was still alive, so things were happening there. She was in and out of hospital, and there was also, he was like, kind of like, what is your family like? This is a lot to understand what is happening. And I suppose most people who meet me, I've come out of it the other side, so they're like, you're not like that, so how is that? And then it was his birthday when we had to go over for my mum's funeral, and he'd never been overseas before, so that was like, but then he kind of, I think for him, saw it and got it a little bit more, and then over the years he's really gone, as I've shared more and told him more, and then he's gone through his personal stuff. I think as age gets on to you, you go through your own, and so now he knows what anxiety feels like. He's never been depressed, but he knows what it's like when you get like a panic attack or an anxiety attack, or the days just seem like there's no colour to them, and so he's like, it's not as simple as just be happy. Like going for a walk and all those things do help,
It's not a simple
but it
solution,
doesn't
though,
just
is it?
remove it.
So did you get education around this, or was it just purely through experience?
Yeah, just experience. I've just lived it and kind of, I don't know, always had an empathetic heart. And those kind of gifts, I just go, they were just probably placed in me by God, because he knew I was going to need them long before I ever did. Because even my husband's like, you're so patient with stuff. Like, it will take you a long time till you snap. And then when you snap, it's like, leave her for 12 hours because now she's really mad. Whereas he's kind of like a fire dragon. He'll get frustrated and be like, rah! And then he's fine. I'm like, it doesn't bother me. But I think because I've seen so much and then lost so much, and especially going through 10 years of up, down, like for that personally as well, I'm like, that stuff's harder than, I don't know, like you stub your toe or the traffic, or I don't know, like it just puts it in perspective. I'm like, it really doesn't matter. Like, there's big issues at play.
That's it. So the little ones are insignificant.
And so sometimes I can be a bit blasé and probably not honour that when someone's going through something a little bit smaller. But
so you must understand very well all the stages of grief.
Yeah.
And what would they be for you that you've experienced?
I've definitely done the anger. Like, I probably did the anger more in the infertility, because I was like, at that point, I was like, enough already, God. Why? Yeah. Seriously. Like, at some point, can't something just
wanted a break?
Yeah. And I think that's probably out of all of them. And grieving the dream and kind of just that real letting go, that's been, but the anger has probably, and because I had done a business in the early years of the fertility journey, kind of to distract myself, kind of to give myself a purpose, because I'm like, I was like, did you just create me so I could suffer? Like, none of this makes sense. So I'm just going to go and take it into my own hands and do my own thing. And then that didn't work. And then that financially cost us a lot of money. So that kind of just compounded the whole thing. And now I've started this new business about 2 years ago. And so I'm really conscious of not bringing any of that in. But I'm not an angry person by nature, but I would definitely say that anger had been, but with Mum, it was just, you just miss someone, just, and my aunties, I was just sad, or I just look at my nana sometimes and I go, it shouldn't have been your story, or, you kind of.
Do you find it makes you more creative in some areas? Because sometimes I think the process of grief, people, maybe they can't express themselves in words or emotions, but they take it to a canvas or something like that. Is that the case for you?
Yeah, it's definitely fueled the new business, Morro Co. So that's where I put like the candles. So when I wrote the book, I felt God say, then I want you to make candles. And I was like, I've never made candles. Like, what? I love them, but I've never made them. And then he really gave me that picture of when you read a book or the Bible or whatever it is for anyone, and you love it, and then you put it back on the shelf. And you might have read a really great quote that inspired you, and then you go to work and you have a bad day and you're just angry at the world again, and you've kind of forgot that wisdom that was there, and especially if it's a devotional or a scripture, and it's like it's so easily forgotten. And so then God really used my creative, because I never thought I was creative until I started writing, and then he was like, I want you to bring scent and words together. And I was like, that doesn't make sense, but okay, let's just try this. And so now every time I have thought, no, I don't want to do this, I still get the picture of my mum's room. It was all dark and closed, and this candle with the word hope on it. And he said, imagine what that word can do in a dark room for someone that needs hope just for today. That's all it is about today. It's just today that they need to know that, they're not going to a job they don't love, but there will be an opportunity to do something different at some point. Like, it doesn't have to be as heavy as the stuff that I've maybe journeyed through. It could just be, this marriage isn't working out, or I don't know how, we're sleeping in separate rooms, or my kids aren't talking to me, or whatever it might be. But and I can't change my mum's story, and I can't change that of my aunties, but I can hopefully change someone else's or be a voice. And so I said to God, well, it's got to be more than just a word, because like I've rolled my eyes at a bunch of your scriptures before, like your word. And he's like, I know, so let's put senses to it. And so I was like, well, what's it feel like to be hopeful? Like, because that's what I used to really wrestle with. I'm like,
what do you want me to feel when I'm hopeful? And so then the fragrance now matches that word. And so hopefully, whether it's the word or the affirmation on the back or the fragrance, something about it gives you that, I'm hopeful just for I choose to be hopeful, or I choose to know I'm loved today, or I choose to be still in this moment, so there's 6 standard, and then there's 2 signature. Heaven, obviously, to represent the 3 women that have started, that inspired the business, and beach, because I live on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
So that's where that creativity and that grief now fuels that, to be a light in someone's world, or a cheerleader, because not everyone's got someone in their world.
I love that.
Them.
What a wonderful idea. I mean, it's obviously an inspired idea.
Yeah.
But to have a candle that represents a light in the darkness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it sounds like your journey has brought you really close to God. It sounds like you've got a lovely relationship with him.
Yeah.
And what would you say was the point where you felt like you just gave it over to him?
I will still remember it. I was driving to meet my sister for breakfast, and it was about the 10-year mark, and we'd kind of said, all right, 5 years, if we're not pregnant, we'll give up. At 7 years, you keep. And then it was on my birthday, and I was a bit early, and so I just pulled up to the spit at Main Beach there and just kind of looked out, and it was so clear and it's so raw, and God's like, put the basket in the Nile. I was like, I'm not doing it. He said, put it in the Nile. And I said, I'm not doing it. And I said, I'm not ready. He said, and it was just so clear, and he kept giving me the scripture. And anywhere I went in the Bible, it was that one.
So we're referencing like the story of Moses here.
Yeah. And when his mum had to put him in the Nile.
Yeah.
But I was like, God, what if I don't pick that basket back up? Because in the Bible, she gets it back, and, she's getting paid to even look after her son. Like, it's quite, but I was like, what if I put it in the Nile and that's it? Like, I'm not ready to not know if I get to pick it up and I fall pregnant next month or whatever. And he said, you're not going to pick it up. And I was like, wow, this is a really great birthday present. Like, this is a bit rough. And I sobbed in that. I remember I was like, nah. And then I just sat. I've got a chair at home, and it was a rocking chair I'd bought to put in our nursery if we had it. And now it's just called a resting chair. So I just rest in God's arms and I read a devotional or something. And I was like, I don't want to do. And he's like, just. And then I remember I said a few unkind words to him at that point, because I was like, how can a kind God want me? And he's like, I'm big enough to take it. Like, I always have this image of God with his arms open going, how many more punches you got? Keep going. I can take it. Like, he almost giggles with it, because he knows that I need you to get it out before my love can come back. So I'm like, fine. And then that moment when I just did it and I just journaled it, and I was like, I'm done. Like, it's yours. I'm never going to be pregnant. I get that now. Like, and then in that, it was like Morro Co still isn't what I want it to be, and it's got a lot of growth, and I struggle with all that. But it can't, that was like, I can't give you this if you don't give me that. And I was like, and I always remember I was like, I wanted 2 babies and all that sort of stuff. And the day I did the pre-orders for my book, it was like 200 or something. Like, and I was like, I'm giving you more than 2. And so it was like, so now my story, like, if I'd had the 2 kids, that's where that story would have ended. But in the grand scheme of things, now I get to be a seed or a voice in so many more than 2. So you've just got to shift the way you see it. Because it still hurts.
You can be pregnant with more, with other things, like with purpose, which is what you're experiencing.
So Mother's Day still will probably always hurt. I don't go to church generally those days, and I struggle to do lunches and stuff, because I'm like, well, I never was one and I don't have one, and it's layered. So
I mean, just to put that into context, because I've got some really close friends who have had fertility issues and never had children. That is such a traumatic journey, and it is the death of a dream. So I understand that on its own is a lot to overcome to get to that point of letting that go. Is huge.
Yeah, it's big.
That's big. And in light of everything else that you've gone through, that would have been quite a difficult moment, very challenging for you.
It took a couple of years to really do it. Like, even now, someone said to me the other day, I'm going to pray the Sarah prayer, like where Abraham and Sarah, and she fell pregnant late in the years. I was like, no, I don't want God to fill my womb anymore. He can fill my bank account so my business can grow and I can create impact. I don't want my womb filled anymore. But like, even probably a year ago, I would have come like, oh, maybe. I'm like, no.
So then your focus shifted more towards your business.
Yeah.
And how has that been going for you?
Yeah, it's growing. So it's a slow progress, I think, because I still got to work and do all those sorts of things, and I don't have endless resources, and I didn't steward money well with the first business, so I'm really being conscious of not everything has to be purchased right now. I don't have to do everything right now. I am a small business. If I can only produce 6 of each candle at a time, that's all I can produce. I don't need to have 50 on the shelf. And so it's that kind of yin and yang of that ebb and flow, at the push and
what
pull.
What do you do for work?
I work at just a retail shop, so I don't love it, and that's probably the hardest part. Is I'm like, I don't really like it, but I'm there because of the money.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, and the time I'm there, it's not time, but I spend a lot of time alone otherwise. So it's good to get out.
Yeah.
Into a workplace.
You've
so it's just
have your bread and butter money.
So now my wrestle with God is, when's it all come good? Like, when's that moment of it just, when's the struggle end? I know the struggle well, and I don't want to be a victim in it, and I don't want to celebrate it, but I'd really like the other side now.
So where is the joy for you? What are the things you find joy in?
Yeah, my joy is definitely creating and seeing the candles go into the lives of people. The week before, I was up here for a conference, and just talking to people about their stories, and then sharing why I've made the candle. And when they come up to me and they're like, I want you to pick it. And I'm like, okay. And I just kind of either ask them more, or I just kind of know, I'm like, that one. And sometimes I have no idea about their story, and I'll just pick it, and they're like, that's the perfect one because of this and this, and you wouldn't have known that. Amazing. And so those moments really bring me joy.
Yeah.
Seeing my book go out doesn't move as fast at the moment or anymore, but when it does, I see someone order it or someone ask for a copy, and they email me back and say, chapter 25, just that journal entry or that line or that one piece really spoke to me. I'm like, okay, well, those really hidden moments when I'm writing alone and it's not perfectly written. I have moments of dyslexia in there, and I reread it. I'm like, that was a bad sentence, Claire. What were you saying? But I just have to trust God's grace is over it, and he kind of...
You should read my texts all the time.
My husband... I know. My husband's like, seriously, you had to get it edited, but they bring me joy.
I have to go and correct myself so many times.
I know. It's terrible.
And then when autocorrect changes
it makes it worse sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's not the word I wanted to say.
I had to text my friend the other day.
Yeah.
Her name's Bernie.
Yeah.
She's actually been on the podcast. For some reason, my text always puts her name, changes it into capital letters. And so every time I write it, so I did say to her this morning, I goes, I'm not yelling at you, I promise. I just don't know why. Autocorrect seems to put it in capitals.
Yes. So, and then, just being with my husband, because that's such a testament to what, his parents divorced as well. So I'm really proud of that we have got a marriage that's whole after even just 10 years. Infertility is a destroyer of marriages.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's horrendous, and you do deal with it differently. And then just going through what we've gone through in life.
You've had so much come against you and you've really wrestled with God, and you could have turned your back on God and just went, you're too mean. But what has been the thing that has made you just hold on to him and see his goodness?
Really, I go, if it's been this hard with him, holy moly, what would it be like without? I just honestly get to that point sometimes. I go, if it's been that hard, and I know there are times where I've gone, I'm not praying today. I just don't have the whisper, or I don't, have that. But the fact that it's there, if I want it, if I want to pray, I know he's as close as the air I breathe. If I put the worship on, I know that his presence will just come. If I know, I text a close friend and go, I need you to be the voice in this situation. I just don't have it. Then I know that they'll raise my arms up. I know,
Do you find it's a peace?
Yeah, there's a peace and there's a comfort. And because I have spent a lot of my life alone, so when I woke up, in my childhood, there'd be days I'd go without seeing mum unless I went into a room and she was asleep because I'd be at school, and then I'd come home, do my homework, cook my own dinner, kind of just be like, hey, and then and then my husband works FIFO now, so he flies in and flies out, and so I've spent a lot of time alone, and so the reality is, I think for me, knowing that I've got God is that he comes in and fills those spaces sometimes. And there is just there's a piece. I can just put the worship on, or sometimes I just put a good old 90s Britney mix on, and I can just feel his joy come in and just change the situation.
Were you a Britney fan?
Oh, always. I went to a concert in Vegas, and yes, she lip synced and she did the whole thing, but I don't care. I was like, this is Britney. I'm very excited that NSYNC might be reforming. And Christina Aguilera and all of it. That's my run mix when I go running now. It's all like 90s, stuff.
So I'm just curious to know, you've obviously had a lot of experience with suicide, and it's such a big topic for lots of families.
Yeah.
And from what I understand is the signs are very difficult to see. Were there any signs for you that were visible that you could maybe share, or was it completely just a shock?
My first auntie Elaine, I don't know too much because I was 6 at the time. So my nana, all I know is that she would go over every day, and then the day she was going to go to work and Elaine's like, I'm fine. And that was the day she did it. So very hard. And Nana spent a lot of years really struggling with, I should have gone that day. And I was like, if it wasn't that day, it would have been another. Like, she'd made that decision. It was just the time for her, and her choice of method was very indicative of it was a choice that was going to happen regardless of if she went Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, doesn't matter. So I can't share much on hers. Mum, she had tried before, and she had written a note, and so I was kind of always aware that might be what had happened. But because she moved over to North Carolina when I was 19, a little bit earlier, so it was hard to kind of read, but she'd done the detox and was like, I'm done. But she knew the problem is, especially with meds and stuff, people, if they're smart, Mum knew what to say because they know, because they are aware that you care for them. So they're aware that if I say this will give me a little bit of breathing space from you. And the last thing they actually want to do is burden you, which in irony is the one thing that happens. Yeah. They're often like, no, I'm okay. This is a me decision. But it's kind of like an atomic bomb. It has such an impact in so many. So often they'll be like, I'm fine. And I would say it's okay to tell them it's okay if you're not. Like, if you're not okay, that's fine. I'm not going to judge you. And it can be very hard. There were times I wanted to wrestle and strangle Mum and just be like, oh, just please get better. Like, it's tiring and it's exhausting. But once they feel that, they clam up. So you sometimes have to know when to step away, and I'm just not your person right now. Like, someone else has to be in here, because you can. It's like if your kid, I imagine, doesn't clean their room after the 7th time you've asked them, you just get that, the frustration builds up. And so you can get that with people with mental illness and suicide. Often if they're thinking about it and they're serious, they won't tell you. That's the hardest. And then the problem is when people tell you, they're like, oh, they just want attention. Well, yeah, they do. But it's often deep-seated. Yeah. So for Mum, we'd had a great chat, and then it had happened the next morning, so Dad had to come and tell me. But I woke up at the time that she'd done it. I didn't know. And that day I was like, I'm going to go to America tomorrow because she's had not great and I have to be there. Little did I know it was all too late. So for her, it was this moment of she'd just come to a peace, but I didn't see it coming, but I expected it.
Right, yeah, okay.
And again, hers was a very sudden choice. It wasn't a planned, whereas her time when I was a teenager was a planned. It was just she was done, like I'm tired. And
so for somebody that might be suffering with mental illness or depression, what are the safeguards they can put around them to prevent it becoming, to go into those extents, and for yourself as well? It's
so personal and individual. You've really got to find little moments of joy and hold them and really protect them. Mum used to go to the shopping centre because she knew she had to put on makeup and she had to do her hair, and she would then sit in the food court, and she knew she was surrounded by people. She didn't necessarily talk to anyone, but the cleaner, she would often say, would come and wipe the table, so she'd say hi to them or whatever. But she did those things for her because she was like, I know I have to shower, I know I have to put makeup on, I know I have to go out. And once you get out of that environment, that dark environment, you can change your perspective a bit. So you really need to kind of get out of the familiar. I'm the same. If Craig has maybe spent 3 weeks away and I've spent maybe 5 days at home and I'm, doing candles and all that, but I know, it's just not a great space. I'll go for a walk. You just literally need to get out of that because it'll just keep getting heavier and heavier. And then your thoughts start to go, no one loves me. I'm alone. My life will suck. Nothing's good about it. You just kind of, it's the dark. It's like just being in a cave. You need to literally get light and change your perspective, making yourself do something where you have to shower, you have to brush your teeth, even if just going out to eat, if that's the only way you're going to eat. Because if you're physically not well, you're mentally not going to be well. And, if you can, no one's like, I don't love my job and I could quit tomorrow. I will have consequences. I might not have money, but I'm
Let's
not.
hope your boss isn't listening to this right now.
But I could but I'm not trapped and I have a choice, and it's being really mindful of the words you're using. And so that's where those candles come in, and they're powerful because it's like, I can't leave my job. No, I can. I 100% can. Yeah. There's consequences. So when you're in that dark place and your mental health isn't great, you have to be so careful of the words you're using. I'm hopeless. This happens. I'm an idiot. It's all too hard. It's not too hard. And that's why I started running this year, because it's like my feet hurt and everything hurts, but I can do it, and so and challenge yourself, you might not want to do fitness, but do some things that start to build the resistance and the resilience, and choose your tribe well, because that's
important, isn't it? Getting out into community, being around other people, feeling a part of something. A running group is great.
Yeah, just doing something. Like for me, I run completely solo, which makes no sense because everyone's like, you do it so much alone already. But I'm like, I can't talk when I run, so I'm like, so I don't do it, but I can't either. And I like just the freedom. I just put music on. It might be a podcast. It might be worship. It might just be nothing. Might be some Britney, doing that. But also I've got some friends that I don't talk about the heavy stuff with because they just don't get it. And they're my friends that I'm like, let's go bowling. Let's go. Like, you need to have your joy friends, I call them, that are just there for joy, that aren't there for the tears and the hugs and the, and they've perfectly got a place in your life. And then you need the ones that are like, I'm bringing over 5 litres of ice cream and I'm downloading everything. And so you need that too, because a lot of people, when they're in the thick of it, just think they need to talk about it all the time. And you don't actually always need to. You sometimes need a distraction to fun. You actually just need some joy. You need the opposite of whatever you're going through.
That is such amazing advice, Claire, and so practical for people. Just to put those key things in place. That's incredible.
I mean, journaling for me has been the key too. You just, because you need to get it out. So it doesn't, I know some people that paint it or just literally get pencils and they just do colours on a page, but it just gets those emotions out, because it's, otherwise it's just like bacteria or decay in your body. It's just going to keep getting worse and more infected and harder.
That's right. So Ange, you ready for some gold?
Oh, absolutely. I don't even know where to begin, because your life story is incredible, but what's more incredible is you.
Oh, thank you.
And how not only you've endured it or persevered through it, but you've pulled out the joy from it. And to be able to even share some of these without it just completely breaking you means you've journeyed a lot and you've done a lot of work on yourself. And I think you've got this incredible perspective. You're not sort of avoiding reality.
No.
You're very aware of the reality, but looking for those things in the future that you can be hopeful for. And I think obviously your faith is such a strong anchor in that. Yeah. And I see you like your grandma. You've pulled out all the wonderful qualities in your grandma despite the trauma in her life. That's not what you're talking about. You said, yes, she's had this, but this is who she is. And these are the incredible qualities that she has. And that's you.
Thank you.
You've had all this trauma, but it's not defining you. It's actually the joy and the hope that you have for the future that defines you. And I congratulate you on that, because it's an incredibly hard thing to do. And I think just some of the things that you've connected with, the running and the candles. I love the idea of the candles. Remind me of your website.
It's Morro Co. So Morro means new day. That's the whole meaning. And co is in reference to my personal connection to God or the people like husband and so forth. So MORRO and co at .com.au.
And words have so much meaning, and having that on the candle as well as the word you put on the candle, whether it's hope or whatever, it's very powerful, isn't it? Yeah. And I love what you said at the beginning of the podcast to me about you put all your focus on today. Yeah. So today is the day that you just need to worry about, not tomorrow, not yesterday. Just look at today and worry about the concerns of today or the joys of today. Yeah. And being thankful for today.
Yeah. You can't. Tomorrow, whatever will be.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I really do think the word stand well.
Yeah.
It really does frame your life.
Yeah.
And I absolutely agree 100%. There should be a movie made about you.
Yes.
And Stand Well is a great title for it.
Yeah, I just want to help other people.
Yeah. And so how can people get your book as well?
Again, on the same website, so morroco.com.au.
Beautiful.
Or just contact me on the socials or...
I just know your story is going to be such an encouragement to maybe people that have had suicides or mental health issues in their family or that are struggling with it themselves. You've offered some really wonderful practical advice, and so thank you so much.
Oh, that's okay.
For being vulnerable, sharing your story with us.
It's hard, small amount of time to try and touch on it, but any way I can help.
You're a beautiful person, Claire. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
And as you were talking, I was thinking this is just going to be resonating with people.
I hope so.
So many key parts of that. I could just think that that's really going to be resonating.
If they've got questions or whatever, they can always just reach out and I'll answer them the best I can.
Have you got contact details on your website or is there socials?
So it's all on there and on Instagram and Facebook and whatever else.
Morro and Co.
Yes.
Morro and Co. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
thank you,
ladies.
Thank
you so much.
You're welcome.
How beautiful was Claire Ange?
I'm honestly close to tears.
Yeah.
I just think how much can somebody endure? But then the miracle is her.
Yeah. She could have gone down the same road as her mum and her aunties, but she lived through it, which was so traumatic, so many traumatic things to live through. And then to not be able to have a baby for 10 years trying. Yeah. But to come out the way that she has with so much beauty and joy, despite the things she's come up against in her life, is just remarkable.
It really is. My mind's blown about it, actually, because just one of those things would take you out. And you'd feel quite justified for being angry at life. Yeah. But she doesn't. She's picking herself up. And I really loved how she unpacked all the practical things that you can do. Is make sure you just get up in the day, just get dressed, put your makeup on, go out for lunch, go and get connected with people. Just live life and force yourself to do it.
Yes.
Even if you don't feel like it. It's almost like don't respond to how you're feeling. Yeah. Do what you know is good for you. And I loved that. And clearly that's something that she's experienced works, whether it's personally or that she's seen it with some of her relatives. But just to keep that sense of normality, routine, life happening is really, really important.
And like you say, her faith is a really strong anchor in her life. And I love how that she's not afraid to talk about how she's wrestled with God. And yet that's created a great relationship with God and herself, where they've had these conversations and this wrestling that's happened. Yeah. But she's kept him close and she knows that that's her strength.
Do you find it amazing, right, when she said... well, I realised if it's this bad with God, imagine what it would be like without God. Whereas most people would be angry at him, really. Like, what more can you give me? You know, you may as well.
But despite everything she's lost in life, he has actually provided her with comfort and peace.
That's. I mean,
that's the clencher right there, isn't it?
And hearing how her grandma as well looks so positively at life and.
Having lost so much herself.
Incredible. You've blown me away, Claire. You really have. And I just know your story is going to touch a lot of people. It's going to be relevant to so many people and is going to provide such keys that are really going to help people through a difficult time. So we're so appreciative that you shared that. And just if that's you or you know somebody that's going through a season like that, share that podcast with them. Share this podcast. encourage your friends to listen, because I know Claire's story is going to touch a lot of hearts.
And please follow her on social media and buy her book and support her candle business as well, because she really is an amazing young lady.
So that's it for today's podcast. You'll find us on all the major podcast platforms. The podcasts come out every Wednesday. We'd love to hear from you on our socials, the Gold Diggers Podcast. Tell us about your story so we can find the gold in you.
Easy as pie, lemon, apple or cherry. Loving you is so very sweet, sweet, sweet. How can it be such a piece of cake? And your smile is the icing. Loving you is a poem. Honey, you're my sugar.